Hi, this is János. Actually, that's Kintaro. And there's Machiko for you. And if you've been wondering, they are the sock thieves. So if you have cats and socks are disappearing, I know for sure that they do steal them. So Machi, she's the smarter. She figured out how to open drawers and they steal socks, and she knows how to close the drawers behind after the mischief. But we are here today to look at my Voigt pipes measurements. So I took out the tape and took measurements of my pipes, and here they are. So basically, when we look at the measurements, I have a couple of measurements for you. So first of all, when you see the design, how it looks like is that there is a floorboard, and that floorboard is on the inside. So the outside panels are going around that inside part. So it's like a tongue sticking out, right? So now that tongue, the width of that tongue is 214 millimeters. So this is 214 millimeters. And now the depth of that tongue, that's 271 millimeters. So that's the depth as measured on the top. The bottom will be a little more because it slants out, so it might be a millimeter or two more than the top. What is it exactly? You have to figure out when you are cutting it. It's very easy. And then the sides are right here. So the side panels are holding the front panel and the rear panel from the side. So they are the support. So they are basically bracing it, bracing the front and the back. So from the front it looks like that. That's the front panel, and there's a side on the side and side on the other side. If you look from the side, this is the front panel, that's the back panel, and you have the side popping, you see right there. And you see that's the fastening method to go for the side. Actually, I have used the screws to hold it in place during the construction process, but that will be for another video. I will make that in great detail for everyone. Right now, this is only exclusively about the measurements. So here we go, is that when we look at the front, look at the opening, which is not a port. It's well, we could call it a port, but it does not work as a port specified by the loudspeaker port calculations. So when you punch in the models and calculate how it should behave as a port, then it's clearly not what it's doing, and I will show you once I get to make that video with the port simulation, that if this was behaving as a port, then it would sound something entirely different. So basically the height of this opening, that's when we count it from the floor, it's 240 millimeters. So right from the floor height to this height, it's 240 millimeters. And the board thickness, well, that's something I have not measured, but this is true for all of them. It's 18, 19 millimeters. It's a 3/4 inch lumber. So that's what it is, 3/4 inch. That's how I purchased it, 1/4 inches, and that's roughly 19 millimeters. That's the thickness of it. So basically the port height is 240 millimeters from the floor minus 19 millimeters. That's the opening's height. And now when we are looking at the total height of the loudspeaker, and that will be the total length of this side panel here. So that one and the other one, from the floor to the top, it is 1937 millimeters, so it's almost 2 meters tall. It's 1.9 meters tall plus 3.7 centimeters. So that's the total height of the loudspeaker. Now, where are the drivers? So the center of the driver is 1 meter and 6 centimeters from the floor. So it's 1060 millimeters from the floor. That's where the driver is centered, and it's centered at the middle of the panel. So I did not put measurements there. It just right smack in the middle. Now, what is not obvious from here, from the cabinet, Kintar is going to explain it. What is not obvious is that at the top, where the two panels meet, there is an approximately 5 centimeter range at the very top when the two panels are together. So I made it sharp, so they really meet at a point, and I had to shave the boards a little bit so they can keep this angle of coming closer together. So you can make it that way if you want to. If you want, you can also modify it so that the top is not so sharp. This is what people usually do, is that they have the front board and then they have the rear one, and they don't meet together, but they put an extra piece here. That's another choice, because eventually I'm going to explain what difference does it make between the two. Well, I can explain now. So basically, when you have a wider opening, then here these are lower frequencies that have preferential treatment, preferential amplification, and as you go towards the top, then you have the higher frequencies which have preferential amplification. Now, if you don't want those very, very high frequencies to get extra boost, then what you can do is just cut out those frequencies by missing out that very tip, where this gets very narrow, where the distance between the front buffer and rear buffer, it becomes almost zero. There you have the super high frequency extension created, and you can cut that off by doing this. And you might say that this is a good idea because we do not hear those high frequencies, or maybe we don't know what it's doing because it's inside the wood anyway, and it would just make the buffer resonate at that super high frequencies. That just the thought of that freaks some people out. Yeah, and you could just cut it lower, but I decided to go this way because by overlapping the front and the back, and on the inside it's glued together with wood glue, so it's just makes it a solid one piece, front and back. This creates immense mechanical stability. So we have those two pieces running together, plus on the side we have this extra board, so we have a terribly strong top, a terribly strong peak for the pipe, and if there are some high frequency resonances, they are kept very much under control because these panels cannot flap around in the wind, but they are really, really well controlled. In this case, when we have this sort of situation, there is not so much mechanical stability, and even though we do not have that high frequencies, but it's still a much weaker connection between front plate and rear plate than this one. So this solution, when you have an overlap on the top, creates the best mechanical stability for your baffles, and that's what I wanted to do, is just make it as mechanically stable as possible, because that's when it will behave more like a music instrument and less like something that was created with an industrial standpoint in mind and to appease computer calculations and predictions. So basically these are the dimensions that I'm using for my pipes, and part of these dimensions came from constraints. So for example, the board before here, if I measure it like in inches, that's 8.5 inches. So this is the width that you get at Home Depot when you are getting an 8-inch plywood, I mean not plywood, hardwood, and that's it. So that's what I could work with. And the other one, I think this was a 12-inch board. Yeah, so that's 11 inches, but it was one whole piece, and I cut it diagonally. So from one board I cut 2 pieces of these. So basically I needed 2 boards that have the specified height plus 12-inch wide, and from each board I got enough material for a whole speaker for both sides. And of course the longest piece is the one in the back. That will be your longest board, but that's also that 8-inch wide board. And now if you get it from Home Depot, you will get 8.5 inches for an 8-inch board. But if you go to Lowe's, they give you they don't give that extra half an inch. Then you'll get just 8.25 inches or even less. So just be mindful for that. I think that 1/4 inch will not make too much of a difference, but if that's your case and that's the wood you can have access to, then I would say just increase the height by an additional 3 inches or so to compensate for the smaller volume inside that you are getting, because it's narrower. And I think that those are my quick ideas and thoughts right now about the sizes. So that's how I chose, after much thinking, what would be the exact most optimal size for each dimension when it met reality, the reality one. And basically I had access to this size wood and that width wood, and I used them to create a cabinet. So that's it. And that's here one of the bottom lines. And the other one is that when I bought the wood for it, it's not just I went down and I just bought random wood. I really took like months, several months in looking at them, just knocking at the wood and knocking at every plank, and I was not satisfied. And not just the sound of them, and making those sounds like comparable between the boards. They are relatively straight, there are no bands, and if I have like knots, look at that, there's a knot, and then upper there's one more knot in the center, and there's a smaller one as well, and when we go higher we have knots there. And now other speaker, same thing, you see those 2 knots there, 2 knots there, and not there, not there. So I made them symmetrical, that because I couldn't find one without knots, I don't have access to grades like that, but then the knots placements are symmetrical on both sides. And so that's another consideration, is that you don't have to get perfect wood, but when you get, just make it symmetrical, like you see there, there, and then here on the other side, there, and of course it's not perfectly symmetrical, not 100% the same, but it's enough that those differences don't come up as a major deviation in imaging, and even with those knots in these boards, these loudspeaker image the best and sharpest of any loudspeaker I heard in my life. So I think that that's not a bad thing. And then you would think that maybe there are some systems that image better than that, and might be, probably, I would expect so. But if these rank like even as the top or the top three in my whole experience of hearing thousands and thousands of systems, then that's a very good indication for you that if you tried it out, it will not be all that shabby, right? So and you can work with these restraints, and I have also some good news that you can take care of the unevenness in the cabinet and also of the presence of the knots, but that will be a topic for another video. And actually when you do that little tweaking, the results can be quite stunning and quite enormous, and it requires literally like almost no money, extremely little money to do that, and it's probably one of the world's best kept secret tweaks that I learned from my mentors too. So for now, this is my Voigt pipe size video, just showing it once more for everyone that you can see and you can read it. Oh, I just noticed that I did not measure the total length of the rear baffle, but it's easy to calculate with just use some Pythagoras theorem, and you can calculate it out. And if I think how I bought it, I bought an 8 was it 8 or 10? I think it was an 8 feet long board for the back, and that's it. And you can cut from that, and you will have still enough. Yeah, because that's how you can buy them here. These pine planks, this number that there's like 8 foot long and 12 inches wide and 8 foot long. How much is that? 8-inch wide. So that's it. And one thing, but that will be part of the construction video, is first make the cabinet and after that create the hole for the baffle. Because if you cut the hole first and then try to put it together, because of the big hole in the center, you might weaken the board enough so that it will break if you cut that before finishing the cabinet. So thank you for tuning in. I hope this will be useful for everyone. If you are thinking about building your own Voigt pipes, and so these dimensions will work, and for many drivers, for numerous drivers. And if you want to scale or resize it, you can make it smaller if you want to, but after a while you will notice that here this depth makes sure that your driver fits in. If you make it too small, then here this will become too narrow and you won't be able to fit a decent sized driver anymore. If you want to make the volume bigger, then you can keep these ratios, just make it longer, and then you won't be able to use the materials that you can buy in the lumber stores. You have to have a custom wood ordered for you, but when you custom order it, then it's really hard to get it in high enough quality, and that might cost you extreme amounts of money to make it deeper than that. And if you just use like extra, like piece it together, like glue another piece of wood to this single piece, then I don't know, you might have problems with that, because then that glued piece will have very different resonance patterns. It might work, but it's up to you. You can play around with that. If you have good skills, you can pull it off, but why I'm not recommending it, and why I'm recommending to use that material that's available for you, two reasons. One of them is price, that it will be affordable, and second one is that you don't need special tools to put it together. So when I built my pipes, I had next to no tools and next to no experience with woodworking. Well, zero experience with woodworking would be much more precise expression. So if I could build it with zero experience, almost zero tools, then you can also do the exact same thing. So basically, as your very first loudspeaker build project, you can already build your ultimate endgame loudspeakers. So thank you for tuning in. Have an awesome day. Bye bye.